Hello and welcome to this live interaction with me, Ashish Parekh. Now, there has been a lot of debate over plasma therapy and its advantages and disadvantages in the treatment of COVID-19 patients. For example, just last week, the center directed private hospitals not to use experimental therapies such as plasma therapy or even drug remdesivir routinely for treating COVID-19 patients after receiving complaints of its rampant use, particularly in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. However, now the Indian Council of Medical Research, that is the ICMR, has come out and said that states could continue using off-label plasma till issuance of any fresh norms or guidelines. In fact, the ICMR study on the plasma therapy, which is not associated with reduction in mortality or COVID progression, has also been peer-reviewed and also published in a British journal. This particular study, in fact, went ahead and said that there was not much difference as far as plasma therapy is concerned. Now, just for those who do not really have an idea as to what exactly plasma therapy is, plasma therapy basically involves transfusing plasma from recovered patients into sick patients so that the latter may benefit from the possible antibodies that are generated in recovered patients' blood, which help in the recovery of the sick patients after transfusion. To speak to us more about this, we've got with us senior oncologist Dr. Vishal Rao from HCG Hospitals. First of all, Dr. Rao, what do you make of this recent announcement by ICMR, and also what exactly does an off-label plasma therapy mean?
Hi, thank you. I think there were a couple of points that came up during this discussion. I think we need to understand the prelude to this was this particular announcement from ICMR came up based on the data that they provided, that in the studies that were conducted, they found that plasma was not able to reduce death.
Okay.
I wrote a note on this entire thing, actually explaining this aspect, which I think was needed to be clarified for the common man. The importance here was the ICMR study that was conducted did not check for antibodies before the transfusion. Okay. Now this is very important. It's like saying that I gave paracetamol, but it was 0 milligram. So now in the study, when they gave the antibodies, when they gave the plasma, now the plasma will only work if it is rich in antibodies. Otherwise, the plasma will not work, and that is why the government of India has been discouraging the rampant, indiscriminate use of plasma. Yeah. Now, and this is correct, because if you do this particular study without meticulous workup, you are not going to be able to achieve the purpose. So, what is it that is important here is that a plasma that is given to a patient should be rich in antibodies. How do we find out that? So at HCG, what we've been doing is, we have something called the withdrawal assay, which is what is being used by the US FDA approved Mayo Clinics and others. Okay. Wherein we check for the IgG antibodies and we look at what is the level of antibodies the patient has. If it is 12 and above, then in those cases, what we prefer is in these settings, it is high in antibodies, and these patients will definitely benefit from plasma. Now here, it is important that what we know from the data from Mayo Clinic is that 55,000 patients that they did the study on showed one thing which was very clear was the earlier you intervene, the better it is. Which means don't let the patient go to the ventilator. Try and intervene them early if the patient is elderly, if the patient has comorbidities, and if the saturation is dropping. Remember these three. Please intervene early. Don't let them go to the ventilator. The second important point is, it has been shown that it reduces deaths, it reduces the hospital stay, and it reduces the number of ventilators that patients went into. Now, this is a very important finding that came out of the Mayo Clinic data and several other data across the world, which showed that in the current point in time when there is no proven therapy, the only one that currently stands right now is plasma for serious patients. That means patients who are moderate, severe or critical, which means patients who are having oxygen saturation less than 94%, whose lung seems to be worsening, and in patients who may go into a ventilator. This is the best shot we have. Otherwise, we should just accept that we are going to put them on a ventilator. They may be charged in lakhs, and eventually they may not come out at all. the only attempt we have right now is to save lives, is to give plasma which is rich in antibodies.
Absolutely. Also, like you rightly mentioned, Dr. Rao, ICMR study, they're clearly missing out one of the most key factors in actually determining how efficient a particular plasma therapy could be. Can we also draw parallels given the fact that there are various studies that have been coming out for a long time now which say that a lot of recovered patients, a lot of people who are contracting COVID-19 have very little viral load, and somehow or the other this can be attributed to the fact that the tests which are being carried out are very extremely sensitive. The number of cycles which are there, which are that they are much higher compared to that of the rest of the world. So all of this, do you say that all of this contributes to the fact that at the end of the day, a lot of people who are testing positive, have very little chance of actually spreading around the virus, and those people, when they transmit the plasma and all of these things, that result is being taken right now, and plasma therapy has been deemed ineffective?
Yeah, you brought out a very, very relevant point, which is very, very important for this discussion, because most people who have mild symptoms will not have rich antibodies in the blood, because when the virus enters the nose, it goes to the throat, goes to the lungs, and then enters into the blood.
Yeah.
And at that point, it produces a lot of antibodies if the viral load is high.
Yeah.
In a lot of people, much before that, it is cleared from the body because of the innate immune system and the cellular adaptive immune system, which actually clears the entire virus before it enters into the blood and creates that kind of a stimulus for high antibody response. Now, in such kind of patients, if they come and donate the plasma, now in our own study at HCG, we've till now given plasma to about 750 patients. 750. What we analyzed of the donors, more than 60% of them, actually nearly 60% of them had a very high antibodies. 30% of them had moderate antibodies, and about 5% of them had low antibodies.
Yeah.
So it's very, very important to understand that not all patients will have very high antibodies.
Absolutely.
So we have been very selective, and the other important point to consider here is antibodies will only last up to 3 months.
Yeah.
After that, the antibodies will fall short. So if you've got a patient who's a donor who's coming to you after 3 months, you might well recheck the viral load, the antibody load in his blood, and that's very crucial.
Exactly. And also, sir, now senior officials have come out and said that fresh guidelines on the effective use of plasma therapy are on the cards as of now. And as someone who's been involved with plasma therapy for pretty much since the beginning of it in this country, how much of a difference do you think will it make to the current scenario where plasma therapy is already being carried out across the country?
See, I have been always advocating it from the very beginning to say it's very, very crucial for us to establish plasma banks in every state and in important districts, regional districts. And the reason for that being that this is the only weapon we have right now in the fight against corona. We do not have anything else.
Exactly.
We know today that 95% of the patients will survive and come out on their own. It is that 5% who are going to succumb.
Exactly.
What is it that we can do today to save lives? And we are not using an unproven therapy. We are using a therapy that has been here for years. This has been something that has been proven by the WHO. This has been authorized by the US FDA. We are not using an unproven false therapy that is being experimented. So this should be understood in the way of scientific light to say this is the best shot we have currently and the most sincere attempt to save lives.
Absolutely. Also, before we wrap up this discussion, Doctor, one of the things that has confused a lot of people across the country, absolutely, people who are not really following up on what exactly the ICMR study missed out on, is the fact that some states have recorded good recoveries after plasma therapy, while on the other hand, you have a lot of states which are saying that it's pretty much good for nothing sort of a therapy. So, do you think again the same fact that they are taking the plasma from donors who do not really have much antibodies or who really have very less viral load, that is contributing to this entire discrepancy that is there between different states?
Absolutely, and I think that's the reason at the plasma bank we've created a very detailed SOP which we have actually volunteered to share with various governments and with hospitals to say how do you establish an effective plasma bank that follows all the SOPs, which includes data confidentiality, which includes tabulating the right data, which includes measuring the right antibodies, and then after that giving it and disseminating it and delivering it to the right places in a proper way.
Yeah.
There is a need for doing this, and this is to be in a systematic approach.
Thank you, doctor, for joining us on this live interaction. That was Dr. Vishal Rao from HCG, who's clearly pointing out towards the fact that, the discrepancy that is there between the study done by ICMR and also the recent ICMR statement clearly points out towards the fact that they had missed out on a crucial point during their study, which is the amount of antibody load that is there in a person, in a donor who really donates his plasma, and also the fact that that needs to be taken into consideration before making a judgment about plasma therapy, whether it is efficient or not, given the fact that that is probably one of the only weapons that we have as of now as far as dealing with COVID-19 is concerned. Do let us know what you guys think in the comment section below, and also do not forget to like, share and subscribe to News 9 Digital.